Marxist, Marxist, Marxist. Progressive, progressive. War-torn. Okay. The progressives, the unions, the communists, the Marxists, they're doing a bang-up job to the entire planet. You keep listening to them and not to voices of reason, and we're in trouble. You know, when you hear Chris Christie speak, you may not like him that much. You may think, oh, he's had too many ho-hos. Well, that's why I like him. You listen to this man, and it's common sense. It's really hard to argue with because he talks about numbers. The unions and progressives hate him because he tells the truth. He exposes what many radicals are trying to do. Cloward and Piven collapse the system. The reason we have all of these problems with union pensions is because of an executive order signed by JFK in 1962. It granted federal unions, I'm looking for the original one from FDR, it granted the unions, is it down there? It granted the unions the right to unionize into the federal government, okay? But if you go back further, you will see that even FDR knew this was a very bad idea. He wrote a letter to the unions, and I have it here someplace, I must have misplaced it, and everybody focuses on this one part in this letter. We looked it up, and you saw what everybody was talking about. He said in this letter, all government employees should realize that the process of collective bargaining, as usually understood, cannot be transplanted into the public service. He said it would be dangerous. Couldn't do it, because you're going to hold the people hostage. But I think the more important part of this letter is this line. I want to emphasize my conviction that militant tactics have no place in the functions of any organization of government employees. So that implies that violence is okay against private corporations. Is it okay against capitalism? You decide yourself. If you turn the time machine back past FDR, you go back and you'll see that Marx and Engels were part of the trade union. Okay? The idea was to make everybody equal. Pay the workers the same, treat them the same, give them the same benefits. Essentially, unions could eliminate the class system. I mean, that's the problem with our schools. We have great teachers, and we have a few bums that we have to drag along. This is why Marxists hate the truth so much. Because the truth is we will always have rich people and poor people. We'll always have lazy people and hardworking people. But they don't like that. It all has to be equal. Income inequality, they hate that. Well, yeah, I've always hated income inequality. I can relate. People make different salaries. I get it. It's awful. I know, for instance, I will never make what Al Gore makes for doing what he does. Never. You'll never make what Nancy Pelosi makes, or you'll never make what Bill Clinton is currently making, or what Barack Obama stands to make the rest of his lifetime. You never will get over it. Income inequality. They have something you don't. And it's funny because they say that the one thing that gets them their money they hate. Connections. Now, there are a few things that labor leaders don't want to tell you about their history, and it's a good reason. As you look for that union label, oh, wait until you hear. Unions have a long history with deep communist and racist roots. You'll only hear about how unions heroically stopped the greedy employers from sending 10-year-old kids to work in the coal mines for $1 a day. Coal mines, stop the kids from going in the coal mines. Here's a story you don't hear about. Union mine workers strike in Illinois, 1898. How did it end? It ended with the unions, with the backing of the governor of Illinois, telling blacks they could not have their jobs back. Blacks. With the governor then saying that he was going to use the state militia to, quote, shoot to pieces with a Gatling gun any train bringing in black workers. The militia captain said, and I quote, here it is from the New York Times, right here, New York Times, if any Negroes are brought into PANA while I am in charge, and they refuse to retreat when ordered to do so, I will order my men to fire. So black miners were murdered. The AFL, before it was the AFL-CIO, passed a resolution praising Governor Tanner. And remember, PANA became a union mine workers slogan. There's a difference between the average worker and the people who run and control the unions. Union workers, this isn't about you. This is about the people who you are giving your money to every month. Have you ever heard of this? This is the Davis-Bacon Act, 1931. It required federal construction contractors to pay local prevailing wages. It was created to protect northern and mostly white unionized construction workers from the southern black non-union construction workers. They feared blacks would be willing to work for a lower wage and take all the jobs. You know what, I have to tell you something. I read about, now it's been a couple of years, so somebody will have to do their homework on this one, make sure it's right, but I'm pretty sure that when I was reading about the history of Rockefeller Plaza, not a single African-American helped build Rockefeller Center. Do your homework, look it up, I'm pretty sure. And what was Rockefeller's excuse? Oh, it's a union rule. It's not me. We have more on the racist history of the unions coming up in a few minutes, but there is also another historical aspect to unions that they need you to ignore and is vital that you understand today. The history of the unions and communism. In 1949, so many communists were in unions that the first 2 of the 11 unions with communist leaders were purged from the CIO. AFL, CIO, racist, communist, all coming together. Unions, we'll go over this tomorrow. Here's the Communist Manifesto. Here are the union things that they were trying to, the same thing. You won't believe when you see the history of communism in America, how they just fit hand in glove. Now, if you think it's not a big deal, well, if you think ancient history is just about ancient history, why are you babbling on about it? Do you remember California wanting to pass a bill recently that would have changed current law and allowed communists to teach and use the public schools in California? Here is the text. Under existing law, a public employee is required to answer under oath specified questions, including but not limited to knowing membership in an organization advocating the forceful or violent overthrow of the government of the United States or of any state. This bill would delete those provisions. Why in your right mind would you want to take this out? Who would even think to bring this one to the table? Unless you're a teachers union looking to recruit more revolutionaries or communist teachers. Make sure that they don't have any problems. This was vetoed by Governor Schwarzenegger, yet it did not stop the school district in California from hiring a teacher like this.
We want to bring a little bit more of a revolutionary context to this. Why is it that these people, these frail, racist, white people, want to keep us out of this country?
Okay. Do you have it? You see what's happening here? This guy is a communist revolutionary who is talking hate speech. Why is it these racist white people? You have racism, reverse racism, and communism. The history of communism and racism tied together in the unions. We have a group that past presidents said should not be able to organize in the government. Not only have they, but they're going to be responsible for the biggest hits to our system. In the end, it will not be the banks that bring us down. It will be the politicians and the labor unions. We have a president who has surrounded himself with Marxist and communist and union leaders. And his unions are stirring up hatred in the streets. His people in his administration, he will not prosecute those who intimidated people at the voting polls. Do you remember this?
Everything okay?
Now, is this racism? See, we have a recipe for disaster here. Now, I want you to know, it's one thing for me to tell you that there's an administration that is sharing the same goals with revolutionaries, communists, and unions. I could say that every day of the week, but it's not going to make any difference. It won't. But I'm going to show you the history in the next 2 days. And I want you to come to your own conclusion. We have communists, we have revolutionaries, we have unions, we have people who are trying to destroy America. I want you to ask this question. Do we have communists, revolutionaries, unions, and this administration sharing the same goals and history? You decide. Buckle up. Here we go.